The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. You're very welcome to this Enterprise Ireland webinar on the UK's government's COVID-19 supports. I'm Deirdre McPartlin, and I'm the UK Manager for Enterprise Ireland. To begin, I'd like to acknowledge the difficult times we are in, and particularly to say to all of you joining us as business owners and senior management in Irish companies, we're very conscious that you are personally facing difficult decisions. And on behalf of the UK team in London and in Manchester, you have our respect, you have our sympathy, you have our best wishes, and you have our support. We're here to help you however we can. Do ask. I'm joined on this webinar by Gerry Collins, who is a managing partner in ECOVIS Wingrave Yeats, which is an accountancy and business advisory which had grown up to about 70 people in London. Gerry is a great friend of Enterprise Ireland and of our Irish clients. He has provided us with much advice and support over the years. And when I spoke to Gerry last week and I mentioned the kind of queries that we were receiving from our Irish companies, in spite of all of the information that's available online, he straight away said, well, you know, what's missing, and we agreed what's missing, is some of that practical advice and lived experience. And Gerry very kindly at that point shared that he himself is going through what most Irish companies who are on this call are going through at this point in time. He has completed the furloughing of staff. He's working through HRMC deferrals. He's looking at the loan scheme. So today he's speaking very much as a peer of the Irish companies who are joining us on this webinar. This is not meant as a definitive guide. It's not the only advice that's out there. You have your own business advisors, but what Gerry is very kindly doing today is offering practical advice based on his personal experience. So before I hand over to him, some quick housekeeping. We are aiming to keep this to the 30 minutes that we have slotted into your diary. A number of companies have come to us with questions in advance, and I'm going to pose those as we progress through the webinar. We absolutely commit to respond to any other questions that you might have. As a first, you might want to put them into the chat or the question function. If we have time at the end, we'll get to them. If we don't have time, please email them to my colleague, Kevin Fennelly. His email will appear at the end of this webinar, and we will make sure that we pass them on to Gerry, who's kindly agreed that he will respond to them. So if we look maybe at the next slide, we can just look at the agenda that we'll be going through, which covers, Gerry will talk a little about the context. He'll talk about the three schemes, the job retention scheme, deferred payments from HMRC, and the business interruption loan scheme, and he'll mention some useful links. So without further ado, Gerry, I'll hand over to you, and thank you for your support today.
Thank you, Deirdre, for that introduction. And as you said, I'm here as a business owner that's actually living through these issues on a day-to-day basis. So a lot of what I say is how we're looking to address these three areas. But I suppose in context, this is, in my 30 years plus working environment, a once in a lifetime health and economic crisis. In the UK at the moment, every lockdown day is costing the economy 2.4 billion. So there will be pressure soon as to what the exit strategy is in the UK. There is currently widespread delays in getting aid to businesses, and I'll touch on some of the reasons for those later. The job retention scheme portal is expected to be open towards the end of April. I suppose just for all the directors listening, there is currently a temporary suspension of wrongful trading provisions. So the fear of trading whilst insolvent and the legal implications of that have been temporarily lifted. And as I said, I'll talk through our practical experience as a business and also how we're helping some of our clients through this. On to the next slide, Kevin. So first of all, the job retention scheme and the new concept that we're all living with called furloughing. This is a temporary scheme open to all UK employers for at least 3 months, starting from the 1st of March to the 31st of May. It is a grant, so this is, I suppose in my language, free money designed to support employers. Some of the key points, it may be extended, and I think if the lockdown continues, it will have to be extended. You can't have one without the other. It's only eligible for employees that were on the payroll on 28th of February. So staff cannot undertake any work whilst furloughed. They can do training. You can have maternity staff, paternity staff on it, but they cannot do any work. The furlough needs to be agreed with staff because this is a variation of their contract. On to the next slide, Kevin. Can you go back one? Yeah. So the maximum an employer can claim is £2,804. That's a very exact number. Basically, it's a max of £2,500 per employee per month, plus employers' national insurance and employers' pension contributions. Now, it's at currently the employer's discretion as to whether you top up the payments beyond the 80%. And I've seen, and we actually are doing this, we're topping up currently. Whether we can continue to afford to do that is another question, but we're topping up currently at different levels for different grades of staff. Now, companies and indeed ourselves may have to rescind that top up at a future date. The communication with employees is vital. What we've done, I had to notify by email the employees in writing to invite them to a Microsoft Teams meeting. Then in the meeting, I explained what the whole process was about, sought their agreement to go on furlough, and then employees must provide to a follow-up letter sent electronically their electronic agreement to this. Now, in our case, some of them didn't come back to us, so we sent a follow-up email to say, if you don't come back to us by a certain date, we're working on the basis you've agreed to this, so that we had an end exit to the agreement process. Next slide, Kevin. So I'll let you just hover on this for a minute. This is the details when the online portal is open at the end of April that you need to fill in. I'll just let you hover on that for a minute. There's nothing there that's rocket science. Next slide, Kevin. Yeah. So just some, I suppose, final points on the scheme that we've seen over the last couple of weeks as we've gone through it. The furlough leave must be for 3 consecutive weeks at least. You don't have to exclude bank holidays in April or May. As I said, staff can undertake training whilst furloughed. Now, you can rotate staff on and off this. So you could have a number of staff on it for April and a different team on it for May, etc., depending on the business case as to who's has work and who hasn't. You can furlough directors. Now, the whole issue of whether you can force staff to take holiday whilst furloughed, I've written to be resolved. There's quite a lot of confusion out there, and I haven't seen anything definitive yet from the government as to whether employers can obligate staff to take holidays whilst furloughed. And now, just on a kind of a personal note, a UK branch of an Irish company, I'm pretty sure, will qualify, provided they have a UK payroll set up. because the UK branch will be taxed for corporate tax in the UK, and the UK payroll will be the means through which payroll taxes are deducted. And maternity leave can be furloughed. So that's a very quick run through the furlough scheme. I know, Deirdre, you probably have more questions on the furlough area than probably any of the rest of them, because this is grant money.
Exactly. So if I just kick off with the first question, which we received was, can you only furlough a worker when you have actually laid them off?
Yeah, the straight answer is, well, the word lay off, they can't be available for work. So we furloughed a number of our staff on Monday morning, and they're not available for work till, I think it's the 4th of May, we put the date, which was 1 full month. So yeah, they're not available, they can't work.
Okay. The second question I have is a UK bank account required to avail of the furlough support for UK-based staff? Our company has both sterling and a euro bank account in Ireland, but does not currently have a UK bank account.
I don't think a UK bank account is needed, Deirdre. I think what's crucial is that there's some form of legal substance here, either a branch or a UK company, and that there's a UK payroll in place. I think it's academic where the bank account is.
Okay. Okay. Next question. The UK job retention scheme doesn't allow the UK staff to remain at work. To avail of the scheme, they must be furloughed and on leave of absence. I'm wondering when the UK will announce a scheme similar to the Irish one, where there is a government support for UK staff who remain in work.
I'll have to be honest, I think it's unlikely that this will be brought in, purely because of the cost of the furlough scheme to the UK government as it is. The whole aim is to stop mass redundancy. So I think it's remote that there would be a further scheme for those people that remain at work, because by definition, they're still at work, so they're not the problem area. It's to prevent mass redundancy.
Okay. And another question specifically on furloughing. Our UK employees have employment contracts with our registered company in Ireland, and the contracts were not transferred when we set up our UK subsidiary, but their payroll is with HMRC. Are they still entitled to UK support and measures?
The straight answer is, I think they are, because going back to my premises about it's a UK subsidiary paying UK corporate tax, and there is a UK payroll system. So I think that's fine.
Okay, I can see there's a whole pile of other questions in here. I might just hold some of them and we'll come back to them maybe at the end, just in the interests of time. So just bear with me, participants, if you can. Do you want to move on to the HMRC tax payments deferred? Jerry?
Yeah, no, that's fine. So on we go, Kevin. So there's three main areas here. The simplest one is VAT. So any payments due in the period 20th of March to the 30th of June will be deferred to the 31st of March 2021. So only payments for that period at the moment. Anything that landed as due in that window. And the good news on this one is the deferral is on automatic, so you don't have to do anything in terms of VAT. Corporate tax and PAYE is different. They sit under what's called the time to pay arrangements. Now, you have to request a 3-month deferral in both cases, and PAYE is on a monthly basis. So in the case of PAYE, you would have to contact HMRC for each month that you want to defer PAYE. They're going to look at it on a case-by-case basis in terms of level of debt, history of payment, etc. But I'm told they're going to have to be pretty benign on this. Now, there's talk about imposing possible interest rates of 3.25% on all amounts deferred forward, but it's unclear yet as to whether they're going to bring this in. You know, they have to be encouraging people to manage their cash properly to protect the jobs of their staff. So I'm not convinced this will come in. And for the self-employed and all those that fit under the self-assessment scheme, all the payments due on the 31st of July are being deferred until the 31st of January, just to give everyone under self-assessment here in the UK for income tax some breathing space. And, you know, I'm just speculating here. Depending on how this year goes, they're going to have to look at that again for the 31st of January. But that's not been decided yet. So those deferrals are pretty straightforward. And in the case of corporate tax and PAYE, you have to actually do something to avail of them. So you have to get on the phone to HMRC. That could take a bit of time, but, you know, cash flow wise, it may be essential that you do that. So on we go, Kevin. Okay,
just before we do, there was one, we didn't have any questions in advance, but just one comment from a participant on the VAT to make sure that you cancel your direct debit so that HMRC doesn't take the deferred VAT. Would you concur?
Yes, but I think you'll have to actively go in and do that.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll have to do that. Otherwise, the direct debit will go through probably.
Okay. Next slide. Yeah, if we talk about the business loan interruption scheme.
Okay, so on we go, Kevin. So this is, I suppose, this was the government's initial 330 billion high-profile funding to save the SME community, and launched with great aplomb. The take-up has been, I'd say, less than spectacular for three reasons, really. The whole issue of personal guarantees initially put a lot of business owners, I'll be honest, including ourselves, off the whole idea. Because originally it was going to be that the government were the guarantor of last resort after seeking personal guarantees from business owners. That didn't feel great to me personally, I'll be honest, because we're looking to avail of the scheme to protect jobs and protect our business, but to be saddled with yet another personal guarantee didn't feel right. I know our bank has waived them in total. I can't speak for the other banks, but there was a lot of backlash about personal guarantees. I suppose the other two reasons why a lot of the applications have either been slow to register or slow to be processed. The slow to be processed point is, from what we understand, a lot of applications that have gone in incomplete. You know, we had a client that we helped last week, and they got their loan within 1 week of us helping them send their application in. It took a week to process and get the money. They have the money in their bank already. And that bank manager said that was the first of 65 applications he'd processed because it was the most complete and easiest to do. And I suppose the other criticism, and this could be a little political, is that all of these loans have to be approved by the British Business Bank, who is basically the Treasury's sifting system for all of this. And there's a lot of comments that the paperwork at that level is bureaucratic, not fit for purpose, process is cumbersome, and there's not enough staff processing the applications. So there's kind of a double layer of processing at the bank level and at the British Business Bank administrative level. So that's the context behind why the take-up has been poor to date. But we expect the take-up to be far greater now that what we think is the release from the personal guarantee obligations are becoming more widely known about, and businesses feel a bit more comfortable about processing. So what's involved? So this is a temporary measure. Kevin, you're a bit quick there. Can we go back one? Yeah, thanks. So this is a temporary measure for loans up to 5 million to cover essential expenditure. The government guarantee is 80%. There's no interest for the first 12 months, terms 1 to 6 years, and you can have a capital repayment holiday at the start or mid-term, and you can elect for that on application. Businesses must be UK based, you know, that's crucial to it. They're not going to give loans to non-UK based businesses. And for this scheme, turnover of the UK business must be less than 45 million. Kevin, next slide, please. So, and I suppose I wanted to highlight complete applications are vital. So I've listed 2 slides here as to what the key components we've seen from various banks' applications, and indeed what they've asked us to submit. You know, what's the purpose of the loan? Like, you know, this is difficult because we're having to do a 6-month cash flow forecast for our own business when we don't actually know what cash is going to look like next week. But our bank has asked us on a worst case, best case scenario, sensitivity analysis scenarios, all sorts of things to look at it. You know, the last point there, what actions have already been taken is crucial, because the bank want to see that you've taken action already. And one I didn't put on there, but also is relevant and gets a major tick in the box, sadly in a way, is the directors and key management have already taken a salary reduction, as we have in our practice, and that seems to have gone down well with our bank manager. Hasn't gone down as well with me, sadly. But so all of these points you need to work through and see how can you avail of all of these. I even see rent deferral. I know a number of companies are talking to their landlords about either not paying their rent by agreement or looking to move from quarterly in advance to monthly in advance to aid cash flow. You know, there's nothing rocket science there, but it's completeness in detail. So Kevin, if we go to the next one. You know, I talked a little bit about a lot of these. You know, there is quite a lot of work in putting this together, you know, make no mistake. And you can't afford to shortcut any of this. But I think the most important thing is, and we've spoken to our bank manager probably 4 or 5 times now before we've put the application in. We're aiming to put ours in next week. And we've got strong steer from him from the key things he wants to look for, so that there's no back and forward on our application after we submit it, the same as we say to our clients. So a strong relationship with your bank manager will benefit the process and move you up the ladder in terms of being processed. So that's something, if anyone isn't talking to their bank manager here in the UK, they need to get on the phone and need to do it quickly. That's kind of vital. Don't send in an application cold without talking to someone first. And complete applications, I have to stress, will get processed far more quickly. I've talked very quickly through that, but you know, the slide says what it says in terms of exactly what you need to provide and the detail you need to go into. Unfortunately, far more than you'd like, but you know, these are business critical loans you're looking to take out. So Deirdre, any questions on that one?
One that came in advance, and I think it seems to be picked up with some of the questions that are coming through. Can an Irish company with a UK branch avail of these supports? Our business is Irish, our product is designed and developed in Ireland, and our sales contracting is done out of Ireland. However, we have a UK office with a registered branch and a number of UK staff to support our UK-based clients. Can we avail of the business interruption loan scheme?
This hinges around what what do they mean by, and I picked the definition from Barclays guidance, must be UK-based business. I'd argue there is enough of a business there to say that it's a UK-based business because it's a branch. So you're paying corporate tax here. You have UK employees physically on the ground here. You know, they're doing work here. I think the vital thing on a branch is, more than any of the rest of them, to get on the phone to the relevant bank manager ASAP and say, look, we're a branch, this is what we do, we think we can avail of, please confirm.
Okay. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the questions that have come in since we started the webinar, and let's see how many we can get through. I think we said we'd finish at 3:30, but if you know, we might actually get through a few of these and we might run a few minutes over, and this will be recorded. It'll be available online in a couple of days as a recorded, and we will also obviously send the slides out. It's automatically sent to anyone who registered. But if I start with some of the questions, as a startup, how can you make the bank recognize you are viable when you're running at a loss, but have good VC investment support? And I should say, Gerry, I mean, if you feel free that you need to reflect on some of these, say pass, and we can come back to them afterwards.
No, because it's relevant to a lot of people that are listening. I think, you know, a lot of the press has said the banking community are only going to fund and support what they consider to be viable businesses before this. So I'll be honest, it is a challenge. If a startup has historically been loss-making, as a lot of them will be, I act for a lot of startups in the tech space, and they have a trail to break even for a couple of years. I think it'll be more difficult, is the straight, honest answer.
Okay. So the next question was, do you know whether employees while on furlough accrue annual leave?
Yes, they do.
Okay. We are an Irish registered company, but only have one staff member in the UK. We do pay HMRC for taxes. However, technically, we're not a UK business. I'm getting different answers from HMRC each time as to whether we are eligible for the scheme.
The scheme being, I presume, the job retention.
It started off with the furlough scheme.
Yeah. Well, if they have a UK payroll, have they any? Sorry, Deirdre, I didn't hear the start of it. Are they a UK branch or whatever?
Irish registered company, but have one staff member in the UK. So it's not clear. They do pay HMRC taxes, so it's not clear how they're registered in the UK.
Okay, I think that one might be more difficult to furlough because they don't have a UK corporate presence. So
that means you need to have a branch, or you need to have a limited setup?
I think potentially, yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think they should, you know, it doesn't cost them anything to look to avail of the scheme, but I think it'll be more difficult for them to actually succeed.
Okay. Another question, in terms of the process, how do you handle contractual notice when furloughing staff?
Can we pass on that one, because I'd have to think about that a bit more.
Okay. What are the requirements for furlough? Does your business need to have lost a certain percentage of revenue?
No. This is in a way at the discretion of the employer, but the whole essence is that these staff would be at risk of being made redundant had the furlough scheme not been put in place. So there's no magic percentage, like the same as us. We furloughed staff this week because we looked a month out and there was nothing for them to do work-wise. So they were going to sit in remote with nothing to do. That was our justification for looking to furlough staff.
Okay. Can you volunteer while on furlough?
There's nothing to stop you volunteering, and the there's the well-promoted scheme to help the aged and that at the moment. Yeah, there's nothing to stop you.
Okay. What should employees who started after the 28th of February do?
That's really difficult because we had examples of that in our office. We'd employed a couple of people on the 2nd of March and they couldn't avail of the furlough scheme. The difficult choice there is you either make them redundant or you have to carry the cost of them.
Okay. What advice, what's your advice on keeping the person off on furlough? I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll try and interpret that. We're going to look at our furloughs internally on a month-to-month basis and look at probably a week to two before before the 4th of May. What does May look like? And then notify in advance if the same people or different people are going to be furloughed for May. Whilst they're off, they're not available to work, but they can do training. We're keeping in touch with them. They're attending our quiz night tonight. There's various social interaction with them, so they still feel a very much part of the team. And we've stressed on them that their furlough activity is very important to the firm because it helps us at the moment. So don't feel that it's because of performance issues, etc., etc. It's just that there's no available work for them. That may turn around next month. That's a very general answer to a question I didn't really understand.
Okay. Where can I find information on the max payment of £2,804?
Well, it's basically 2,500 a month max per employee, plus employer's national insurance and employer's pension contribution. So that's how it makes up to 2,804.
Okay. And if you wanted to look at this again, you can go to the UKGov website. You
can go through our link, which I'll talk about in a minute.
Okay. When is it expected that refunds under the furlough scheme will be available?
The hope, and I have to stress that, and this is the hope of the entire business community, including us, is that towards the end of April, the portal will be open, and then hopefully, and I have no control over this, shortly thereafter, and I can't define what that means, funds will start to flow. Now, I know certain of our clients have not been able to pay their staff already, so the staff are only going to get paid once the furlough money comes into the company. So there is pressure on the government to basically bluntly get on with this, get the portal open, get the applications through. Then it's down to processing time and resource at their end to get money through. I think it's going to be, if they're talking about the portal open towards the end of April, my guess is, and this is a pure guess, it's going to be a couple of weeks after that at some point before money starts to flow. It's very unclear. Now, I'm hoping that as we go through April, the Chancellor will give more clarity on A, when the portal's open, and B, when the money's going to flow, because a lot of businesses, including ourselves and all those listening on the phone, want to know what that magic date is so they can plan for it.
Yeah. Then we're nearly there in terms of the questions. My employee is off since the beginning of the month, and I will probably I'm not sure if I can interpret this, is off since the beginning of the month, and I will probably be off work coming in the next 2 to 3 weeks. When would I extend to?
I
okay,
don't understand the question, Deirdre. To avail of the furlough, somebody has to be off work for at least 3 consecutive weeks in a month, in a pay month.
Okay. Moving on, this question came in when we were talking about the loan. Who is your bank who cleared the loan without personal guarantee? I think we covered that, didn't we?
In our case, I can only say we bank with Barclays, and they've confirmed now to us that we don't need to provide a personal guarantee. That's been waived in Barclays Bank. I can't comment on the others, but I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have gone out on a limb to do that without consensus across the banks.
Okay. And this again was on the loan high there. Is a UK subsidiary considered a UK based company? I think we covered that. You said it is.
Yes.
What if the UK business is funding the Irish business as a supplier?
Well, it all depends on what's deemed as business critical expenditure and how that's looked at in terms of the money going back to Ireland. I think that's a specific that you're going to have to address with the bank manager.
Okay. And from the same person was, in your experience, is it the bank manager that makes the decision or at least influences it?
I think the latter influences. It'll still go to credit, but there's a lot of pressure now to release these monies. So the normal bureaucratic credit process, we're told, is being streamlined to get the money out because businesses are dying on their feet without furlough money and civil loan money.
Okay. A late question to the furlough scheme. If we furlough workers and no work after 12 weeks, do we need to pay notice period and include the furlough in the redundancy calculations?
Well, the scheme's only available till the end of May at the moment. So redundancy calculations, well, the redundancy will be based on the number of years worked either under or over age 41, and that will include the furlough period.
Okay. Is there any indication from HMRC as to how long PAYE can be deferred?
I think the honest answer there, Deirdre,
Yeah.
is it all depends on how long this goes, because they won't have an open-ended checkbook to keep writing checks. So there has to be a balance to this in terms of how long the Treasury can bear the shutdown of the economy. As I said, it's costing 2.4 billion per day, versus on letting some release on that. Unknown at the moment, but I go back to my comment, they have to go hand in hand. They can't keep the economy shut down and stop the reliefs to businesses, because businesses will just die on their feet and they'll have additional problems in terms of mass redundancy, and then they'll have no income tax to collect next year. So
Okay.
The shutdown and the tax reliefs, I think, are inextricably related. So they can't continue the shutdowns without extending furlough, tax deferrals, etc. They have to be linked.
Okay. Two more questions, and we'll leave it at that, even if any more come in. One comment also that the HMRC portal will open on 20th of April, they have announced. So second last question, is there support for one-person limited companies, e.g. IT contractors who pay themselves dividends and expenses?
This is the whole area of self-employed.
Yeah.
Yes, they gave relief up to an annualized figure of 50,000 a couple of weeks ago in terms of relief for self-employed. So that's a very specific relief, because there was a lot of criticism that self-employed were being ignored. So the specific relief to self-employed up to an annualized income of 50k.
Okay. And last question, is there anything to do now or prepare for the furlough portal process?
You saw the details that are needed on the slide. Have those to hand so that if the magic date is the 20th of April, which is good news for everyone, you can apply that day, provided the system doesn't crash.
Okay. Gerry, listen, thank you so much. You have managed to get through all of the questions but one, which was how to handle contractual notice when furloughing staff. So I've made a note of the person who asked that question. I think that's more
of a legal issue than anything.
Yeah. We're getting a thank you here from Elaine, and on behalf of everybody who participated in the call, Gerry, really thank you for your candour and that very practical approach and advice, and your openness to taking any question that was fired at you.
That's okay. And just on that, Kevin, if you just go to the link on
the next slide, yeah,
that will give you a link to our website. We keep this updated every day. And I suppose finally on the next slide, Kevin, if anyone has any more specific questions, either fire them through Deirdre, or I'm happy to take specific questions by email afterwards, if that helps. You know, we're all in this together, so happy to help where I can.
Okay, and if you move on, Kevin, just to the next slide, I very kindly give your email address, Kevin. So to anyone left on the call, maybe use Kevin as a filter through to Gerry. We can kind of collate similar type questions. My contact details are there as well for any other questions you may have. And with that, I'm going to wrap up. I'd like to thank everybody for participating today. I'm sure your questions helped a lot of peer learning across the board. And as mentioned, the team here in the UK in Enterprise Ireland, we really respect what you're going through, and you have our fullest support. I'd like to wish you all a very happy Easter. Thank you.